is me, so the one and only Paul Friends, welcoming you to Star for the Universe on call. And tonight, we've got me, of course. We got Barry, and we've got our good old friend Dave in the chat room, and must probably still join in the chat room over on Twitch too, because I know he knows the way. So, just so you might actually want to hear Barry's voice. How you doing, Barry?
Hey, I'm alive. I'm here.
Yep.
How you doing?
Good. Doing good. Doing good. Yeah, my son's going to be coming home tomorrow because he's all vaccinated and all, so that they're allowing visits now.
Oh, that's a good thing.
Yep.
Yeah, people are starting to get vaccinated now.
Yep.
I know my sister just got vaccinated, and my mom just got vaccinated.
Yeah, just my wife and my son have gotten vaccinated. I haven't, and neither of my daughters have. And I'm sure my daughters are kind of low on the totem pole.
Yeah, I know my daughter, my one daughter is not going to get vaccinated until she's absolutely certain, because she has heard that there's some questions as to whether the vaccine can affect fertility.
That's an interesting question. Because
and that would only affect women,
right,
of that age.
Yes. Oh, understood. What was the one? I think it was. I'm thinking that it was the Johnson & Johnson that there might have been a question about issues with a woman if a woman was pregnant. Is that the one, or the other ones? But I know there was.
Yeah.
But anyhow,
either way, she's like, she doesn't want to take that chance.
Mm-hmm. Oh, understood. Okay, let's put that over there. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, moving on to less.
Weighty matters.
Well, less weighty issues. Because I'm sure people don't tune into the podcast for a full downer, man. It's like, really, it's dragging me down. So you sent forth from your little fingers a little piece of wording, a document, one would say. Now, for those of you who have listened to the podcast before, if I recall correctly, we actually have already discussed a previous revision of Barry's ideas on second generation X-ship rules. Some additional systems that could be added to the second generation, and to have it so that the way the second generation ships worked differently than first generation, of course, General War ships.
Yeah. So when they first came out with second generation ships in Module X2, and that was back in the 1980s.
Yeah.
And they said, "Oh well, we're going to revisit this soon because this is just like a preliminary supplement, and there's a lot of stuff that there's going to be stuff that needs to be improved. Don't worry, we're going to be coming out with something real soon now."
Yeah, we'll have corrections and addendums and all that kind of thing to fix up correct any issues that we had with the second generation rules, and that 20 years later
never happened.
Yep.
More than 20 years later.
I know more than 20 years now. Jeez.
geez, it's over 30. Over 30. It's close to 35 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause well, the original. I have to double check to see when the original one came out. I know it was in the 70s. Was the original Starfleet Battles, if I recall correctly? Because I know the Commander's Edition
Correct.
was available at the very. The first time I ever saw it was like I think 1984,
85 or 84.
84, 85. I forget
Yeah.
when John DeWeese. Was it John DeWeese? Yeah, it was John DeWeese that introduced me to Starfleet Battles.
Hmm.
And I remember us
You-
playing it in Calhoun Hall, which Calhoun Hall, that actually was not my. That was. Let me think. Jeez. I forget. Calhoun Hall, that would have been not my. Definitely not my freshman year. I could.
hmm
Yeah, that was. I forget that it was one of the tall ones. It was one of the oldest buildings when it comes to the dorms at Drexel University. I think Calhoun. I was there. I think it was pre-junior year, so I was playing it in like 1986. Yeah, that would be 86.
hmm
Was when I started playing. At least that's when I remember playing it in Calhoun Hall. So,
Right.
yeah. And then my junior year and my senior year, that's when I got into the towers. I can't believe I remember all this.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah, your brain was very good at forming memories, long-term memories.
Yeah. Back in the days of college, geez. 18, 19, 20.
Yeah,
Dang, got it, man. That was when I was
time
going to
flies.
Drexel University in Philadelphia. That's when they had the second move confrontation. Oh, that was interesting. Because I remember sitting in my room at the towers and looking out the window and seeing the smoke. So
Oof.
yeah, that was. Oy. And I'm just glad I wasn't there for the first one, which was actually across the street from Drexel University in Paladin Village. But anyway, dang it, dragging
Yeah.
down memory lane. Oh,
Mm.
but getting back to the second generation X ships, there were some interesting ideas that
Yeah, I'm
uh,
just
you came
throwing
up
stuff
with.
out there,
For
see if anything sticks.
what's that? I'm sorry.
Just throwing ideas out there to see if anything sticks or if
Yeah,
anything makes sense.
different ideas. For those of you who are familiar with attack vector, some of this might sound a little familiar. At least the idea of it. Don't mind me trying to organize things here. But okay, most part the impulse chart remained the same from last revision, which is based for those of you who are not there. It uses a 64 impulse chart versus a 32 impulse chart. Personally, I'm not sure if that's a good idea or not. Not because of it makes it easier for the faster movement. For me, it's more of an issue with um,
Client?
no, not the client at all. The client can handle it. It is the impulse activity. Because now what you're saying is that you can react twice as fast, is what you're saying, for the same amount of time.
Well, now the one there was a very specific reason why I did that, and the very specific reason was that second generation X ships can do impulse activity on odd impulses and even impulses, whereas non-X ships can only do impulse activity on even impulses. So that gives a lot of flexibility and capabilities to X ships
Mm-hmm.
because they can do things on the odd impulses. Um, Things are moving faster than speed 32. There's going to be certain um, like drones or plasmas that are moving very rapidly. Uh, as far as the non-X ship is concerned, it could move 2 hexes between firing opportunities, and they might not get a chance to shoot at a drone or a plasma at range 1. It may go straight from range 2 to hit, whereas a second Gen X ship would have that firing opportunity.
Mm-hmm. True.
So that was the purpose of that.
Mm-hmm. Understood. Now, the power systems, I must admit, some of it I definitely like. Um, um, and that is that the power systems basically generate double power. They generate 2 points of power. I kind of like that idea. And here's why I like that idea. And that is that you can increase the amount of power generated for an X ship without increasing the number of boxes.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So that part I do like. And I think that definitely that has good very much merit when it comes to second generation X ships. Now, Barry and I discussed this a little bit before the show, and that is about you know, now this is kind of weird, which is power can be generated during EA or in the middle of a turn. Typically, a ship won't use full power of capacity during EA. Basically, what you're giving it is for all the okay. This goes back many years, and I remember hearing about this, which was there was a misunderstanding way back when about energy allocation and the idea of that if you didn't use all your energy during energy allocation, you could use it later on as you wish later on in the turn. And it's like, no, that's not how reserve power works. But in this case,
right,
that's exactly what you are giving as an idea, which is.
But then I
sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say is basically that the supposition that if you don't allocate all of your energy at the beginning of the turn, now at the beginning of the turn you have to allocate all the energy for movement. I'm assuming I have not seen what is the minimum requirement when it comes to EA about what you must allocate.
No. You can do unplotted movement on reserve warp power. And you can get more reserve warp power by generating, by recharging the batteries. So what I did was I limited, you can generate, let's say a second generation ship has 5 battery boxes. And let's say those 5 battery boxes have been empty for a while. I can generate 5 points of warp power and then immediately use it for unplotted speed changes.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but the point I'm making is that And then in energy allocation, you still have to do a speed plot for the full turn and pay for the cost of
Correct.
that speed for the full turn. Versus
Correct.
the whole idea of I'm gonna I'm only gonna plot half my turn, the energy for movement for
Oh
half the
no.
turn, and then later on I'll add to it. You know, no.
Hmm. Yeah. See.
And
No. No.
this
No.
brings
No.
up, but Barry, that brings up the question, and that is, um, with a system that you're proposing, which is what
Mm-hmm.
systems would be required, a minimum requirement for that had to be um, allocated during energy allocation,
Alec. Well, certainly multi-turn arming weapons.
right?
You couldn't. Yeah,
Which
you would
means
have to
which
during EA. You would
right,
have to
which
continue the
gives it
arming process.
even a gives single turn arm weapons even a bigger benefit than they previously had, because now,
Well,
well,
yes and no.
yeah, well,
Hmm.
let me finish the thought, which is given that you don't have to allocate energy to those weapons, and then now, previously in SFB, not Fed Combat, SFB, for those single turn arm weapons, you still had to charge those weapons in energy allocation if you want to use them.
Hmm.
But now you're giving them the additional flexibility to only allocate energy to them when they want to fire them, at the moment of firing.
Well,
Because that's what
in
you're
that
doing.
sense, but it doesn't have much more capability than a standard ship, and standard ships can do that to a certain extent. I can arm disruptors on batteries.
Right.
Um, in a standard ship, uh, the Klingon D7 or like I usually use tournament cruisers. So a tournament cruiser with 5 battery boxes, which is standard, um, can use all 5 battery boxes to arm its disruptors. Now you only can arm one overload or 2 standards doing that because that's all the power you have.
Right.
Um, the second generation X ship only has 5 power and batteries, so it could only do the same amount. Now, it has the capability of 4 impulses later of recharging those batteries and then doing it again,
So wait a
and
minute.
then 4 impulses later recharging those batteries and doing it again.
Okay, so what you're saying, let me see if I understand what you're saying, is basically that you can you can dynamically use that energy that you have not pre-allocated, but the only way you can use that is through charging the batteries. You have to the energy has to go in the batteries first before you guys can use the unallocated energy.
Correct.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, it's in there.
Mm-hmm. I know, but remember, Barry, people on this is a podcast. That means people are listening, not
Yeah.
watching, not reading. They're listening.
Can't see the document. Yes, I
Correct.
know. So what happens? The process is, um, if you discharge a battery, there's a 4 impulse delay before you can recharge that battery, and so you basically you use the battery power, and then 4 impulses later, you can then use unused warp or other power to recharge those batteries. So over a period of time, you could charge single turn arming weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Um, reserve, but you couldn't do it all at once.
Right. Okay. Okay. Now, another thing that the Barry has it is that okay, max speed for ships is speed 41, which is which is fine. You know, the whole idea of second generation X ships can move even faster than first generation, or before it. I see no issues with that. It's interesting. Yeah. Now, this is where we go off towards some ideas coming in from attack vector. And that is, as states here, there is a thermal capacity and thermal dissipation system. Basically, generating power generates heat. That heat must be dissipated. Each ship has the ability to temporarily store heat up to a limit, and this is beyond the capability. That is beyond the capability to dissipate. Now, as I said, that's something from attack vector system where the everything, you no longer have to worry about energy, at least not as much. Your biggest concern is heat, just like in BattleTech. BattleTech, your number one concern is usually it's not ammo, it's not your weapons, it's heat. And that's why I always, in BattleTech, where you wanted to be was standing in a lake and firing your weapons, because the dissipation within a lake is greatly. What's that?
Yeah, you get a hot, steamy lake, though. But
True. And you might have some boiled fish at the end of all said and done. But the whole idea was that you could quickly dissipate the heat that was being generated by these weapon systems. And that's the same idea with attack vector, is that the limiting factor was not energy, it was heat. And I know we talked about before, which is I think the honor inheriting system, where they basically have these heat sinks which are kept inside the ship while you're in battle. And one way to say you concede
that was
is
not in the honor Harrington. Harrington, they didn't care about heat.
Okay,
but that was attack vector.
Okay, so it's attack vector in that universe to basically identify that you're surrendering is that you put out your heat sinks.
Right.
Because
because radiators are delicate.
Right. Exactly.
If you take a hit with your radiators out, you're basically toast.
Exactly. So you're not going to flying around with them out. And
No. If they're not, if you lose your radiators, you're dead. So, and they're delicate, so you have to keep them inside the armor to protect them. And if you run out of heat storage, and now you have to dissipate, you put your radiators out and you say, "Okay, I've surrendered."
Right. Exactly. Now, as Brian and I discussed earlier, I think it's an interesting idea, but the one thing that I have a problem with this whole idea myself is that any generation of power creates heat, whether it is 1 point of power or it's 70 points of power. And I feel like that people who don't use up, don't overtax the energy system. Not putting nitro into the energy system to juice up the amount of power that you're using, shouldn't cause it to generate any heat. And the only reason I say that, and here's the reason why I say this, and that is this is a new dynamic that's being added to second generation X ships. So it's one of those things that you didn't have to worry about with first generation X ships. In my mind, unless you're pushing it where you're using that additional energy, in this case, both points of power from the from that energy system, then you shouldn't be penalized, by generating heat, because previously they were able to handle the heat with just the one box is one point of power.
Well, keep in mind that I'm basically saying that your heat dissipation is probably not been improved from non-X ships. So, but your power generation has been. So if your heat dissipation exceeds your power generation, then heat is never an issue. You can always dissipate more than you can generate. Why even keep track of that? But now, where you can exceed your dissipation rate, then they had to add additional storage to allow you to run your engines hotter than they normally would run. And you can go that way for a little while, but then you have to back down because you eventually you've exceeded your dissipation rate and you run out of storage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it basically, what I was looking for was a dynamic of not giving the ships extra power, but and allowing them to really increase their power, but only for a little while.
Mm-hmm. Right, but as I pointed out earlier, well, pre-show, that is that currently the system that you set up, it yes, that if you have your heat dissipation boxes in place, if you don't overtax the amount of energy that you're producing, you should be able to easily dissipate it. But normally, but in pre-second generation, you didn't even generate enough heat that you required dissipation boxes.
Well, here's another way of looking at it. Second generation, they improved the heat storage capability. Let's say in non-X ships, heat storage equals your energy generation. A ship. Okay. And the heat dissipation exceeded that. Then at that point, there's no sense in keeping track of it. You're going to generate 1 point of power per box every turn. You don't have to worry about that. But they said, okay, we're creating a new generation. How can we get these engines to produce more power? Well, the problem is that they need more heat storage. We figured out how to improve the heat storage capability, but we haven't really improved the heat dissipation capability. So now we can get more power, but only for a while.
Well,
and we run into that.
Well, basically, what you're saying is that second generation X ships their power systems are running hotter than first generation first generation power systems.
Right, and you have more storage capability, which allows them to run hotter.
Well, no. What you're in my mind, what you're saying is that with that increased output, there was increased heat generated, and we had no way of. They couldn't figure out how to dissipate the heat even better. In at the same time when they increased the amount of power being generated from the same system.
Well, actually, what I'm saying is the storage went up.
No. What you're saying,
capability went up.
No, but previously there was no the first generation and general warships. They don't have any heat storage. They have no need for it because the heat dissipation is good enough so that when you generate the energy, it dissipates the heat immediately. So they're tied.
Well, yeah. Well, okay, they happen. But in my system, I'm saying that the generation happens at the moment you generate the power, and the dissipation happens at the end of turn.
Right. Which means that, in my mind, that means that the heat generated from the energy is more than can be handled by the dissipation system. There has a lag time now because there's too much heat being generated.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And the thing that got me started on that was I was looking at it going, okay, I wanted to make ships that could handle a fairly large volley of incoming damage on improving the shield systems, where it could handle a fairly large volley and it could recover quickly. But I didn't want, it was kind of like in Fed Commander where you can only use your, however much you have batteries, that's the maximum amount of power you can use in reinforcement per impulse.
Mm-hmm.
But you can do that every single impulse.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, FedEx Commander is
5 batteries even.
Yeah. FedEx Commander is a little bit different when it comes to the dynamicism of the weapons. As I stated earlier.
Right.
With FedCom, that actually is true completely, which is single turn army weapons. You don't use the energy from you do not use the energy until you actually fire your single turn army weapons.
Correct.
Which is not quite the same as your system where it actually has to had to go through the batteries. Right. But
I'm talking about the reinforcement system on the shields, and in FedCom I think they were trying to avoid people having these massive bricks, but at the same time they wanted to give you the ability to fight off this. If somebody was just plinking with you, you could take that. Of course, there was a cost.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on FedCom because I don't think they solved the problem as well as they could have. And I know we've discussed it before. I'm pretty sure I've discussed it with you before, which is the whole idea of as soon as you have to do an energy allocation for your weapons, you lost them.
Mm-hmm.
The easiest FedCom game to play is one where you don't have multi-turn army weapons. That you have the energy, boom, you use it, and voila, it fires. No tracking, just firing. But I understand the issue of porting something from Starfleet Battles to FedCom, where you had you're used to having that weapon system, and the way the ships and the whole rules were designed is that dynamicism changes. The whole, when you change it so that that turn arming weapon becomes a single turn arming weapon, then it completely changes. Or even if you have to track, that, oh, you fired it last turn. The whole idea of FedCom was to minimize the amount of tracking that was required to do. That's
Right.
Because that's one of those things that you do when you actually launch a seeking weapon. You tell them what the target is. They know what the target is. So, that's one less thing that has to be, it kind of has to be tracked, but not nearly as much. You don't have to say, okay, well, which one have I announced? Has people figured out what the target is, and which ones have they not? Keeping the amount of tracking down to a bare minimum. So, anyhow, moving back to the second generation X ship rules that you created. As I said, I like the whole idea of the doubling the energy output for a single box. I think that's awesome. The heat, I definitely using the whole idea of heat dissipation and heat storage. Obviously, adds a dynamic to Starfleet battles that wasn't there before.
Absolutely.
Actually,
And
what are you gonna say?
And I was looking at a Ryan engine doubling, and it's like, that kind of gives you the same effect, but it does permanent damage to your engines. Well, these are second generation engines. You can run them doubled without doing permanent damage,
right.
But you still have to limit them that you can't run them doubled the whole time. So I needed to give it another limitation that would, you can run it for doubled for a while, but it's going to start to run into limits at some point, and that was my way of giving it those limits.
Yeah, I see no reason not to do it, because one thing it kind of reminds me of is Andromedans to a certain degree.
Yeah.
In that in this case, you're always going to be concerned about that heat now when it comes to energy output, how much energy you use, and how much you can generate and not fill up all your heat storage, which is the same thing when it comes to the Andromedans and their PA panels. And getting that energy out of the PA panels, you're constantly worrying about how to do that. In the case of this, you're going to be constantly concerned about the heat that you're generating. That's one of those dynamics it's going to add a complexity. Now, obviously, is it for a good reason? I think if it's limited to additional energy, more than the amount of one per box, then I think it's got a reason. And I think it better fits into Star Trek and doesn't make Star Trek into attack vector.
Yeah.
Well, and it definitely creates. I like the idea of it because of it solves certain issues. And I said the one, obviously the one right off the top of the bat, which I like, which is double amount of power for the same amount of boxes, which I think is a really good idea. Just off the bat,
right?
Because of, for anyone who's I've shown it on the podcast before, which is the second generation X ships. And basically what they did was they just took current X ships and they bulked them up. the current like cruisers and so forth, and they bulk them up when it comes to the number of boxes. And that just kind of defeats the purpose if you just double everything. You're not changing how the systems interact. You're not changing, because the whole idea of second generation X ships is that you have a different dynamic involved. That how you reinforce, how you defensive wise, what's the next generation defensive wise of how do you protect your ship? How do you attack the other ship? How does that whole thing work? Do we all do what the Juggernauts did and say, "Oh, forget the shuttles, we just want shrieks"? Yikes! I was reading up on the Juggernaut, which is these shrieks are these are freaking nasty. They are. You know how the Hydrants, the fusion fighters, they're considered roaming nuclear space mines.
Yeah.
Shrieks are that. They go speed 32. They take 12 points of damage to kill. And when they hit the ship, they do 35 points of damage. So they are truly roaming nuclear space mines.
Yeah.
Now, fortunately for everyone involved, when it comes to the Juggernauts and the Shrieks, they're only given 2 of them per scenario. So that's the only thing that'll save your bacon.
2 launchers or two Shrieks total?
2 Shrieks total.
Oh, okay.
Because basically, they are what they originally were, shuttles that were transformed by the Juggernaut itself. That's one thing I did not read more of the story on which is the return of the Juggernaut, but from reading the rules for the Juggernaut, when it comes to the scenario and the rules for the ship, when it comes to the beta, which was it's capital slug number 33. From what I read from the rules, it indicates that originally the Juggernauts were actually manned ships, and then the crews died. But they still the ships themselves were, basically there's an AI in the ship, and they said, oh well, after the crew dies, they kept on going.
Right.
So, and from one of the rules that I read for the beta, it seems like they communicate. So what happened to the alpha was communicated out, and the beta picked it up, and so he modified it the way it works. That's when it got the idea of shrieks. That's where it went, the whole idea of having the system that automatically moves the shield to whatever, like if a ship uncloaks, it will automatically go whoop and block, and the shield will face the uncloaking target. It turned that off. So it's learning from its engagements. So
yeah.
Anyhow, getting back to the second generation X ships, after we chased down that rabbit, okay. This is one of those things that I'm not quite sure I agree with completely, but I understand it because of you had to change it, which is okay. Sorry. I need to tell you what that is that I'm looking at, which is the battery boxes hold 1 power per box. So it went from, in the case of the first generation X chips, 3 points of energy per box back to 1 point of energy per box. Now,
Right.
as an improvement, this makes no sense. But I understand the reasoning behind it, which is because of the whole energy allocation that we talked about earlier, where
Hang on. Oh boy.
You okay? ¿Cómo está? Barry.
You there? I'm back.
Okay.
Sorry for about my Bluetooth headset decided. Oh, I'm just going to disconnect, and it wouldn't reconnect. So
Did the Bluetooth, is it wireless? I mean, yeah. Yeah, is it wireless? Completely? As in, possibly your battery died. Still there? Folks, I think we lost it. Buried to the Bluetooth black hole.
there
I can hear you now.
now.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, my Bluetooth. Unfortunately, my laptop was on, and my Bluetooth kept jumping over to the laptop
Ah, okay.
from the phone. And it's like, okay, I just shut the laptop off, and then it took me about a minute to get back. So
Okay.
I probably missed you for a minute.
Oh, no problem. No problem.
So you were talking about the going from 3 boxes to 1,
Right, which is
or
actually
3 power to 1 per box.
right, which is kind of a downgrade for
It's a
second
step back.
generation X chips. But as I was trying to say, which was that I can see why that's necessary when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
the dynamic that you added by allowing unallocated energy to be funneled through the batteries to then be used.
Right.
And
So first of all, you can use the batteries more than once per turn. And the second thing is that I made shield reinforcement effective, twice as effective, in that the outer shields have a damage reduction factor. And if I put a point of power into reinforcing an outer shield, I also generate 1 point of reinforcement and 1 point of damage reduction factor. So that's not now that reinforcement only lasts for that impulse. So basically, what it means is that you look at how much damage was done, then you use the batteries to reinforce it.
mm-hmm.
And if I had given it just the 3 power, then say 5 batteries, 15 power, that's 30 points of damage I can stop just on the batteries in one volley,
Mm-hmm.
which is, I thought, excessive. And that was one of the problems they had with the second generation X chips, is they actually had 5 points of power doubled. You could soak a plasma R on batteries.
Right. Oh, understood.
And it's like no. Now and with my current system, because I like the idea of having doubling, but I wanted to put limitations on it. But with a 3-point battery, I could soak a plasma S on battery. So I wanted to scale that back a little bit. On the other hand, I wanted to give it, but with the ability to recharge your batteries, you can do that more than once
Mm-hmm.
in a turn. That was the other problem. Was, if you've got 15 points of batteries on a ship, it takes a. And I remember one battle, I was experimenting with a second generation X ship, and I didn't. I actually got my ass handed to me. That was a first generation X ship from the supplements.
Hmm.
Okay, and those had 5-point batteries,
They did.
and it was a Fed heavy. What's that?
They did. 'Cause I'm pretty sure they've always had 3-point batteries for first generation X
No, no,
ships.
no. This was pre Commanders edition.
Oh, okay.
This was the original.
Okay.
This was supplement 1, 2, and 3.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And I had a Fed cruiser with 25 points of battery power up against a Lyran Lion Dreadnought.
Mm-hmm.
And I had my ass handed to me because I didn't know what I was doing. And I kept recharging my batteries to the full 25 points during EA every turn. And I kept saying, "Oh, he fired all those disruptors and phasers at me. I'll take 50 points of damage off. 25 points of damage off because those were single. Because it was first generation X ship. I said I'll just take the 25 points of damage off, and then I didn't have any power to do anything else, and I couldn't get away, and he just to do more damage than I just didn't have the power to soak all the damage and reinforcement, and
Right. Well, it's not,
it got ugly.
well, you got definitely you agree that you were playing it dumb, i.e.,
I was playing
focusing on recharging your batteries, then putting powder back in the batteries as you can do it.
Right. What I needed to do was just say, okay, I'll just accept the shield damage, get the heck away, and then once I'm faster than he is, I can slowly recharge the batteries, get my ship ready, and then come in and nail him on a firing pass.
Right.
Run
Exactly.
away, recharge. But
Exactly.
I didn't do that.
You need speed to get away, to maintain range, to actually have ability to not get as much damage. Going through all that.
We were also playing with plotted movement.
Cool.
It was pre-Commanders edition. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, understood. As
yeah.
I to this day I still like pre-plotted movement. The whole idea of pre-plotted movement, not not full turn pre-plotted movement, but like quarter turn pre-plotted movement.
Turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was looking at this going, well, the system I've got now, those 5 1-point batteries actually do quite a bit better, I think, than the 5 3-point batteries with the first generation X ships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I like the idea that they had in the supplement 2, where they said, "Oh, specific reinforcement counts twice." And it's like, okay, that's a good idea. It actually was. It's one of the, but when they combined it with 5-point batteries, it's like, no, it's too much.
Right.
And that's a very powerful idea, doing it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be careful the way I implemented it, because until all the damage reduction factor is used, you don't touch the reinforcement. So you have to wait until all your damage reduction factor is used up before you really want to start putting more in for batteries. And you have to put the battery power in at the beginning of the volley. You can't just say, Okay, we'll wait halfway through the volley. Now add the batteries. No, 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 no. So if you put a point of reinforcement in too early, it adds the damage reduction, which gets used up, but then it doesn't get to the reinforcement, and the reinforcement goes away at the end of the impulse. Outer shield reinforcement can only be done with batteries, and it can you put it in at the beginning of the volley, and at the end of the volley, at the end of the impulse, it's gone.
Right.
Yeah. There's small volleys that don't go through the damage reduction factor. Probably just don't even bother, because you're going to get that back at the end of the turn, at the beginning of the next turn anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to make the ships thicker without adding boxes.
Right.
And that's
Right.
the double energy, and also the structural integrity field, which was kind of like a leaky armor that regenerates.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I did with
Okay, yeah, I'm missing it. Where is that documented? Okay, there. Right, let's talk about the outer shields.
near the bottom of the shields.
Okay. Okay, all second generation X ships have regenerating system stability field that provides some protection against internals. It is a way of making a ship tougher and survive damage better without increasing the amount of working box on the ship. Unlike armor, the stability field is slightly leaky, but it does regenerate.
Yeah.
Okay. Roll 7. There's a stability field box on the left of the deck. Roll 6 and 8. There are 3 one-shot boxes. And roll 5 or 9. There's 2, which is interesting. And die roll, there's one-shot boxes, and 2 or 12. There's no stability field protections. So you protect everything but the control systems.
Well, and I did that deliberately, because how often do ships ever go uncontrolled?
True.
This at least gives you a chance to get into that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Understood.
Yeah. So you got 20 boxes of that on a cruiser, but I think it regenerates like 5 points per turn. Sorry, up to the damage control rating.
Right.
So 4 points per turn. But so the example, it's 15 boxes of it. So
15 boxes, for a cruiser, yeah.
For a cruiser. So I gave an example where you got 20 points incoming, and the way it's distributed, you actually use 14 points of your system stability field, and left 1 left on the system stability field. So it was armor, but it was kind of leaky, and
I will admit that it's definitely an interesting idea for it, which is instead of basically for armor, it would be all boxes. Basically, any die rolls, it's hitting armor. It's just taking off armor. In the case, the stability field it's actually depends upon which die rolls you roll, how thick, quote unquote, how quote unquote thick the armor is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because these are single shots. So that
Right.
if you have a lot of internals, you can actually get quite.
You'll go through that.
In theory, it should be able to go through that. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I wanted to give, I know that X ships are going to have a lot bigger volleys, and I didn't want these things to be eggshells, where, or I shouldn't say, eggs with tank armor around them, and if you don't get through the armor, nothing. You do get through it, it just dies instantly.
Oh, understood. But yeah, I definitely think you got some good ideas here. Overall, when it comes to the systems, some of them, as I said, I don't quite agree with. Like the energy allocation and how that dynamicism is added. Not quite sure I agree with that part of it. Some of the other ones I definitely think are awesome ideas. The stability field, I like the idea. If I'm not sure about the number of boxes per roll. If it should all just be one, or it should be the dynamic thickness depending upon the die roll. Obviously, it's just one thing that had to be tested out. I like the idea of the damage reduction field. Factor. As coming from basically the omegas. I think it's the omegas. Was it omegas or
which
no? It wasn't omegas.
Which
it was
one was this again?
It was the LMCs. Is what it is. It's from.
Oh, the outer shields.
Outer shields. That's from the LMC.
Yeah, that's where that came from. Oh, damage. Yeah, the damage reduction factor, unlike Ken's ideas, where you get your full damage reduction factor back at the end of every volley.
Right.
Like, no, it comes back at the beginning of every turn.
Right. Understood. But, and the idea of the amount of basically double power. Each box represents 2 points of power instead of 1 point of power. I really like that idea. And overall, I see some good things here. I really do. The question is some of the more crazy ideas how those would actually work out. Obviously, this is one thing next time we get together, maybe we should try playing a game with the second generation X ship rules and see how they work.
That's what I'm writing them for. Is I'd like to take a standard Fed Heavy and a standard Klingon, and we can go at it. Now, the one thing I said was I think for the Fed Heavy tournament cruiser, I think I'd like to add the G-Rack.
Right. Well, that's what currently is part of the standard Federation cruiser.
Yeah.
For
also made Wild Weasels partially leaky.
You added leaky Wild Weasels? Is that what you said?
Yep. They don't always work.
That's an interesting idea.
Some drones will go for them. Some seeking weapons will 50% chances.
Right.
So you got seeking weapons out there. You launch Wild Weasel.
Right. They're acting more like.
50% of them say, yep.
Right. Yeah, they're acting more like chaff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Versus the all
Except
powerful,
for,
you know,
yeah, now,
the wild weasel and everything goes chasing after it.
right.
Phew. I'm thinking about the swacks. Dang those things.
Mm.
The ultimate wild weasel right there.
It's getting late.
Yep.
Yeah, sadly it's getting late and I
Mhm.
need to get.
Oh, I was
sleep.
closing. I was shutting down, as it was.
Yeah.
I was trying
All
to
right.
wrap
I'll
it up.
see you
Yep.
possibly next week. Probably not. Next Thursday's a flying day for me.
Hmm. Okay.
Okay.
Well,
See
safe
you.
travels then.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. So, had a nice little discussion about second generation X ships. I was actually kind of hoping Gary would stop by and we could discuss the Juggernauts, but obviously that didn't occur. Hopefully Gary will be by next week and we can discuss the Juggernauts. I actually I bought all the captain's logs so that online. So I got the electronic versions so that we can go through the SSDs here, talk about the rules, talk about some of the other things which I know Gary wanted to talk about, which is the whole idea of Juggernaut as a campaign player, or a campaign empire, and how that could work, which I think would be quite interesting. Now, obviously, some of the history behind it might have to go by the wayside, but in any cases, I think it would be an interesting talk, and I can't wait to have Gary back so that we can discuss the Juggernauts because I have everything ready to go through that. So, with that, I am Paul Franz. I'd bid you a good night.